Welcome to the inaugural episode of Why Movies Work, where we take a look at the craft of filmmaking and analyze why movies do what they do. My name is Garrett, and today we're taking a look at House of Usher, the 1960 film directed by Roger Cameron. Based on the short story by Edgar Allan Poe, House of Usher follows Philip Winthrop as he tries to convince his fiancée Madeline to leave her family home behind so they can get married. Roderick, her older brother, is not exactly thrilled with the situation. In classic Poe fashion, there's a lot of mystery surrounding an illness the siblings seem to have, although it appears to affect Roderick more than Madeline, despite the fact that Madeline is who dies from it. Then it turns out she wasn't dead, or maybe she was dead and she's like a zombie or something and the house burns down. Anyway, I don't love this movie, but I think it has some very impressive elements. I find the way the film uses sound to be particularly interesting. Take a look at this first scene here, when Philip first arrives to the house. Pay special attention to what you're hearing.
Sir?
I should like to see Miss Usher.
Well, I'm afraid that's not possible, sir. Miss Usher is confined to her bed.
She's ill?
Yes, sir.
Is it serious?
Sir?
My name is Philip Winthrop. Miss Usher and I are engaged to be married.
I cannot admit you, sir.
Cannot? By whose order?
Mr. Roderick, her brother. He has expressly forbidden...
Well, then I shall speak to him. I insist you announce me.
Yes, sir. If you'll just come in. Your coat, sir. If you'll just follow me.
Yes? What is it?
Your boots, sir.
What about them?
Do you mind taking them off?
Taking them off? What on earth for?
Well, I'm sure Mr. Roderick will explain it to you, sir.
Strange request. This is the first time I've ever been...
This scene is an excellent example of how to use silence to build suspense. Whether you notice it or not, most scenes in movies have some sort of backing instrumentation, especially in scenes with only a little dialogue, like action sequences for example. I'm even using a backing track in this video right now. When there's not instrumentation, there's ambient noise. If the scene takes place in a coffee shop, you might hear a general murmur from the other shop attendees. This clip starts with a string section that fades out into just the sounds of constant wind. When Philip uses the door knocker, it has a very sharp sound that pierces the ears. Philip and Bristol, the servant, have a brief conversation before stepping inside. Once the door is closed, there is complete silence. There's another sharp sound when Philip steps on the hardwood floor in his boots and Bristol insists he take them off. I think this subconsciously makes the audience notice how peculiar the lack of sound is. It adds an unsettling layer to the scene. It's like how sometimes in a movie or TV show, a character will say, "It's quiet." Too quiet. Now, this next scene I'll show you has the opposite effect. This is in the middle of the movie. Roderick is trying to convince Philip that there's a family curse, and Madeline leaving with him would be a terrible idea, not just for Madeline, but for Philip and any children they may have. Once again, pay close attention to what you're hearing, but this time, notice how the silence is used as a release of tension.
Anthony Usher, thief, usurer, merchant of flesh. Bernard Usher, swindler, forger, jewel thief, drug addict. Francis Usher, professional assassin. Vivian Usher, blackmailer, harlot, murderess. She died in the madhouse. Captain David Usher, smuggler, slave trader, mass murderer.
Mr. Usher, I don't see that this has anything to do with Madeline and myself. I don't believe in the sins of the fathers being visited upon the children.
You do not, sir? The house of Usher seems to you then normal?
The house, sir, is neither normal nor abnormal. It is only a house.
You are very wrong, Mr. Winthrop. This house is centuries old. It was brought here from England, and with it every evil rooted in its stones.
You really believe this?
Evil is not just a word. It is a reality. Like any living thing, it can be created and was created by these people. The history of the Ushers is a history of savage degradations. First in England and then in New England. And always in this house. Always in this house. The pall of evil which fills it is no illusion. For hundreds of years, foul thoughts and foul deeds have been committed within its walls. The house itself is evil now.
No, I cannot believe this.
But you must. For Madeline's sake, you must. Most of all does this evil reside in her.
And this is your dreadful secret?
Mr. Winthrop, do you think those coals jumping from the fire onto you were an accident? Do you think that chandelier falling was an accident? Do you think that falling casket was an accident?
Are you trying to tell me that the house made those things happen?
Yes.
Oh, no, sir, that's ridiculous. But even if it were true, even if this house were full of evil, Madeline is not. Nor for all of your talk are you.
You cannot take my sister out of this house. If she were to wed and bear children, the Usher evil would spread a new malignant cancer.
You are mad. I will not listen to you.
Yes, you will.
No, I will not! I'll tell you what's evil in this house, sir. You! I will not let your sickened fancies destroy Madeline's life! She leaves with me today.
Without paying any attention to the sound, I think this scene would be creepy enough. I mean, look at those paintings. Those paintings should have been a red flag the size of Russia. Philip should have pieced out the second he saw those, but that's besides the point. Sonically, the scene starts off with some distant, very ambient strings and a couple high-pitched human voices. Brass instruments blast in very unpredictably. The tone with which they come in on top of the uneven timing adds suspicion, to say the least. The orchestra becomes more prominent as the scene goes on, and Roderick tells the story of his ancestors. At one point, some human voices join back in with a wobbly, glissando type sound. You know, the ooh. Yeah, that thing. Roderick's voice even starts to get creepier. His voice gets softer, but he's talking about this supernatural curse. It's almost like he's worried the curse will hear him talking about it. When Philip takes a step away and talks back to Roderick, the instrumentation completely cuts out. The suspenseful momentum is entirely cut because Philip thinks he sees through Roderick's story. Up until this point, you would think the audience had been experiencing everything from Philip's perspective, but that really changes by the end of this scene. As Roderick becomes more and more anxious of Madeline's departure, the orchestra comes back in. However, when Philip raises his voice, the score matches his volume, loud and sharp. We never see Philip deliver any of those yelled lines. We only see shots of the paintings and a reaction shot of Roderick curling in pain. It really changed my perspective when I rewatched the scenes of this film I was thinking about using for examples. It's weird. For the first half of the movie, you really think Roderick is the bad guy. And yeah, he kinda is, but this is the first scene where you start to realize he's not that terrible. He's just trying to protect as many people as possible. Thank you for tuning into the first episode of Why Movies Work. I hope you enjoyed taking a deeper look at this film with me. Tune in next time when we'll take a look at the 1960 French crime thriller Purple Noon. As we say in my hometown, don't forget to be awesome.